Are you sure you're okay? My best friend, Emily, looked at me with concern as she zipped up my wedding gown. Her eyes met mine in the mirror, and I forced a smile. Yeah, just wedding jitters, I guess. I muttered, adjusting the beaded bodice of my gown, looking at my own reflection, searching for the Sophia who was over. The moon happy about this day. It's natural to be nervous, Emily reassured me, but remember, this is a happy day. As I walked down the aisle, my arm linked with my father's. The string quartet played Pachelbel's canon in D. I couldn't help but notice Mike, my soon-to-be husband, standing at the altar. His posture was stiff, his eyes lacking the gleam I was hoping for on our special day. Was he nervous, or was it something more? When I finally reached him, he grabbed my hands. His palms were sweaty, and his grip was weak. You look beautiful, he said, although his voice lacked the warmth I expected. Thank you, I whispered, wanting to believe in the fairy tale moment, but something felt out of place. After the minister ran through the usual spiel about the sanctity of marriage and the commitment we were about to make, we exchanged our vows. Mike's words sounded rehearsed, void of emotion. When it was my turn, I looked into his eyes, speaking my vows from the heart, trying to banish the nagging doubts at the back of my mind. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. You may now kiss the bride. Our lips met, but the spark was missing. It felt mechanical, like he was going through the motions. The guests erupted into applause, and we made our way to the reception hall, but my gut continued to churn. The reception was a blur of congratulations, photo ops, and the inevitable mingling. But the thorn that kept pricking at me was Patricia, Mike's mother. Dressed in an ostentatious outfit that almost rivaled my gown, she was the self-appointed queen of the event. As we prepared to cut the cake, Patricia grabbed the mic from the DJ. I just wanted to say how thrilled we are to welcome Sophia into our family. Although, well... She paused for dramatic effect, her eyes scanning the crowd before landing on me. I suppose this lovely gown is the best she could do on short notice. The room went silent for a beat, then filled with awkward laughter. I felt my cheeks burn, a cocktail of humiliation and anger coursing through my veins. Mike took the mic from his mother and chuckled. Mom's got a point, babe, but you look beautiful regardless. I forced a smile, posing for photos while every fiber of my being screamed that something was off. Instead of feeling like the most important day of my life, it felt like a charade, a series of moments stitched together without love or genuine joy. That night, as we drove away from our own wedding, cans clanking behind our car and Just Married painted on the rear window, Mike turned to me and said, "Well, we did it." "We did," I replied, but the words tasted sour, a prelude to the unraveling that would inevitably come. "So yes, my name is Sophia, and I did get married." I said, "I do," but as we drove into the night, I couldn't shake the gut-wrenching feeling that I should have said, "I don't," and that was just the beginning. The days following our wedding blurred into weeks, and the newfound freedom of matrimonial life seemed to settle in, or so I thought. We moved into my house, a modern two-bedroom place I had purchased a year before meeting Mike. I always took pride in being financially independent, in carving out a space of my own. My home was a testament to that independence, filled with artwork I loved, shelves of books that reflected my eclectic taste, and furniture carefully selected for comfort and style. It wasn't long before Patricia, the looming figure that she was, found reasons to visit us. The first time she came over, her eyes scanned the living room as if she were a building inspector, scrutinizing every detail. This place is cute. It's certainly, cozy," she declared, the word cozy dripping with insinuation. I bristled at her comment, but managed a tight-lipped smile. "Thank you, Patricia. It's perfect for the two of us." She let out a chuckle. "Yes, I suppose it'll have to do, won't it?" Mike, who had been pouring drinks in the kitchen, joined us with a glass of wine for each of us. "What are you two talking about?" "Your lovely wife was just showing me around," Patricia replied, taking a sip of her wine. "Oh yeah. Mom, isn't it great what Sophia has done with the place?" Mike looked around, seemingly oblivious to the tension in the room. "It's charming," Patricia said, setting her glass down. "But I was telling Sophia that maybe she could use some help. The place could use a woman's touch." Mike laughed. "Well, Sophia is the woman of the house, so her touch is what matters, right?" I shot Mike a grateful glance. For once, He seemed to be taking my side. However, my relief was short-lived. Still, Mike continued, "Mom's got a lot of experience with this sort of thing. Maybe you could learn a thing or two, Sophia." I was flabbergasted. I actually like our home the way it is, Mike, but thanks for the input. As the weeks went by, Mike's job search turned out to be a wild goose chase. I found it puzzling, his lack of enthusiasm to contribute to our household. I had a stable job, sure, but the burden of supporting both of us began to wear on me. "You know, it's tough out there," he told me one evening, his eyes on the TV rather than me. "I've been sending out resumes, but nothing's clicked yet." "You've been looking for almost a year. Mike, have you considered broadening your search or maybe going back to school?" I asked, trying to keep my frustration at bay. "I don't know, Sophia. I'm still figuring it out," he replied, his eyes still glued to the screen. And so the pattern continued. Me, the breadwinner, and Mike, the eternally between jobs husband. Patricia's visits became more frequent, her criticisms more biting, and her influence over Mike unsettlingly apparent. "It's just temporary," I assured myself, clinging to the hope that Mike would eventually step up. But deep down, the unsettling truth began to cement itself. I had built this house, both literally and metaphorically, and it seemed I would be the only one striving to keep the walls from crumbling down. The home that had once been my sanctuary now started to feel like a beautifully decorated prison, a place where my choices were questioned, my efforts undermined, and my partnership with Mike feeling increasingly like a solo endeavor. I was upholding the vows I had made, but was he? And where did that leave us? The situation wasn't just unsustainable, it was a ticking time bomb, and as the days went by, the tick grew louder and louder, culminating in a revelation that would leave me questioning not just my marriage, but everything I thought I knew about the man I had married. Months stretched into a year, and my life began to feel like a monotonous routine. Work, come home, deal with Patricia's incessant meddling, and sleep next to a man who seemed increasingly like a stranger. But then, amidst all the drudgery, a flicker of hope appeared. I found out I was pregnant. Elated and anxious, I couldn't wait to share the news with Mike. I imagined this would be the catalyst for change, the spark that would ignite a renewed sense of purpose and unity in our marriage. So, I planned a quiet, intimate dinner to break the news. That evening, as Mike sank into his chair after the meal, I took a deep breath. "Mike, there's something I need to tell you," I said, my hands clasped tightly in my lap. "Sounds serious," he replied, glancing up from his phone. "I'm pregnant," I announced, the words hanging in the air like a delicate mist. Mike looked up, his eyes meeting mine for a brief moment before quickly looking away. "Oh, wow. That's something. Something. Mike, we're going to have a baby." I couldn't hide the incredulity in my voice. His reaction was nowhere close to what I had envisioned. Where was the excitement, the joy? "Yeah, a baby. I mean, are you sure? Have you gone to the doctor?" he stammered, his face turning a shade paler. "Yes, Mike, I'm sure. I took a test and saw my OB-GYN." Okay, he muttered, rubbing his temples as if trying to dissipate a sudden headache. "It's just a lot to take in." My heart sank. "I thought you'd be happy," I said, my voice barely above a whisper. I am happy, Sophia. It's just unexpected, that's all," he replied, offering a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. That night, I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, my thoughts a swirling vortex of doubt and suspicion. What was wrong? Wasn't a child supposed to be a blessing, a symbol of our love and commitment? Deciding that it was best to plan for the future, I started putting aside money in a safe I had in the house. It was to be a nest egg for our child, a head start in a world that seemed increasingly uncertain. So, I thought I'd start saving for the baby, I told Mike a few days later. "I've put some money in the safe, for future expenses, college emergencies, that kind of stuff." His reaction was baffling. "That's fantastic. Sophia, great idea," he said, his eyes lighting up as though he had just won the lottery. While I expected him to be pleased, his enthusiasm seemed excessive and, for lack of a better word, off. It struck me as odd, considering his lukewarm reaction to the pregnancy itself. "Are you okay? You seem unusually excited about this." I probed, trying to gauge his real feelings. "I am. Sophia, it's a smart move. You're being really responsible, and that's great. He reassured me, but his smile seemed to hide something I couldn't quite put my finger on. And so, as my body began to change, to make room for the new life growing within me, my marriage continued to languish in a stasis of unspoken tensions and hidden agendas. My home no longer felt like a sanctuary, but a complex web of deceptions and half-truths. The seed of life was growing inside me, but the love that should have been its counterpart was wilting away, leaving me to wonder what would be left when everything finally came to light. My belly grew round and taut, a tangible manifestation of the life inside me, even as my suspicions about Mike and Patricia continued to fester. Patricia's visits grew increasingly frequent, her questions more probing. It was as if she was a detective in a bad cop drama, keen to interrogate me at every turn. So, Sophia dear, how's the savings fund coming along? Making regular contributions, I hope, she queried one afternoon, a saccharine smile on her face that didn't reach her eyes. Why do you ask? I countered, beginning to feel like a cornered animal. Oh, just concerned for the little one's future, she replied, sipping her tea with calculated slowness. It was then that I realized my safe was no longer just a repository for a future college fund or medical emergencies. It had become the central focus of some twisted family drama, and I needed to know why. The next day, I resolved to check the safe, and the sight that greeted me was alarming. Thousands of dollars were missing. My heart sank, and my hands trembled as I recounted, hoping my eyes had deceived me. But they hadn't. I knew that only 2 other people knew the combination to that safe, Mike and, unfortunately, Patricia. An unsettling wave of dread washed over me. This wasn't just about money. It was a violation, a betrayal that shook the very foundations of my already rocky marriage. I needed proof, and I needed it fast. With my trust shattered, I decided to install a hidden camera aimed at the safe. Perhaps it was an extreme measure, but drastic times call for drastic measures. The camera was my insurance, my way to catch whoever was betraying me. A week later, Patricia came for dinner. Her eyes gleamed with that familiar predatory spark. Midway through the meal, she excused herself, citing an urgent call she had to take. I'll be just a minute, she announced, retreating to another room. After she left, I looked at Mike. Your mom seems to be enjoying her visits a lot these days. Mike shrugged, taking a bite of his steak. She just likes spending time with us. What's wrong with that? Do you think it's normal for her to ask so much about our finances? I pushed further. She's just being a mom, Sophia. You're reading too much into it, he replied, visibly irritated. After dinner, and once Patricia had left, I went straight to my computer to check the footage from the hidden camera. My heart pounded as I clicked play, but nothing could have prepared me for what I saw. There she was, Patricia, fumbling with the safe and eventually getting it open to stuff her purse with wads of cash. I was mortified, but also strangely vindicated. My intuition hadn't failed me. Patricia was the thief, but the larger question loomed. Did Mike know? My stomach churned at the thought. Whether he did or didn't, my next steps would shake the already crumbling edifice of our marriage. I summoned Mike to the computer. You need to see this. His face turned an ashen gray as he watched the footage. He was speechless, his mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. Finally, he managed. I can't believe it. My own mother. My eyes locked onto his, searching for any hint of deception. Did you know about this, Mike? For a moment, he hesitated, and in that split second, I got my answer. Mike's hesitation spoke louder than any words he could have uttered. In that infinitesimal pause, the last vestiges of my trust in him disintegrated. His eyes finally met mine, full of a remorse that was a day late and $1 short. I didn't think she'd actually do it, he stammered, his voice tinged with a mixture of guilt and disbelief. So you did know. My voice was calm, eerily so, as if the storm inside me had sucked away all its inflection. I suspected, but I never thought. You suspected, and you said nothing. Allowed your mother to steal from your pregnant wife. Mike sank into a chair, his face in his hands. I didn't know how to handle it, Sophia. She's my mother. I thought maybe she needed it for something urgent, and she'd tell me later. She said it was a family emergency. A family emergency. Stealing from family for a family emergency. My voice rose with each word, incredulous. Sophia, can we find a way past this? For the sake of our child. He looked up at me, his eyes pleading. I shook my head slowly. You made your choice, Mike, and you chose wrong. I felt a steely resolve solidify within me. It was as if the trials of the last year had been a crucible, and I had emerged from it, not broken, but stronger, harder and sharper. I knew what I had to do. Sit down, Mike. You're going to want to hear this, I said as I pulled up a chair across from him. Taking a deep breath, I opened my laptop and showed him an email draft addressed to our local police department, complete with the video evidence attached. Do you understand what this is? I asked, looking straight into his eyes. He swallowed hard. You're going to the police. Exactly. Your mother will most likely go to jail, and you, well, you'll be lucky if I don't press charges for complicity. You'd do that. Send your own husband to jail? I leaned in closer. You stopped being my husband the moment you chose to become an accomplice to theft and betrayal. As for the baby, don't worry. I'll make sure they grow up knowing the difference between right and wrong. His face paled even more, if that were possible. Sophia, I'm so sorry. I messed up. Can we find a way to make this right? Some mistakes can't be undone, Mike. The only way to make it right is to face the consequences. And with that, I clicked sends on the email. Within seconds, the video footage and my statement were on their way to the authorities. The die was cast, and there was no turning back. As I watched Mike's face contort with a myriad of emotions, from disbelief to realization to despair, I felt no joy, no sense of victory, only a deep, abiding sadness for the love that had been lost, for the family that could have been but never would be. My revenge was complete, but it was a hollow victory, yet it was a necessary one, a painful excision to prevent the spread of a deeper rot. The truth was out, the lies exposed, and all that was left was to face the fallout. As I sat there, my hands shaking but my resolve unyielding, I knew that the hardest battles were yet to come. But for the first time in a long time, I felt ready to face them, no longer as a victim, but as a woman reborn in the fire of her trials. Courtrooms are strange places. They're supposed to be halls of justice, where right triumphs over wrong, yet they're often filled with so much tension and emotion that the atmosphere becomes almost palpable. This was especially true on the day Patricia and Mike stood before the judge, the former charged with grand larceny, and the latter facing the possibility of being named an accomplice. My lawyer sat next to me, a robust woman with keen eyes, who had assured me that the case was as good as one with the evidence we had. Still, I felt a knot of tension in my stomach. The judge was a stern-looking man, his face lined with years of legal experience. Patricia Williams, you are charged with theft in the first degree. How do you plead? Patricia glanced at Mike, then back at the judge, her eyes moist with unshed tears. Guilty, Your Honor, the courtroom murmured. My eyes met Mike's, and for a split second, I saw regret there. But it was too late for regret. The judge banged his gavel. I hereby sentence you to 3 years in state prison and mandate restitution in the amount stolen. 3 years. Not enough for stealing my trust and breaking up my family, but it would have to do. Then the judge turned to Mike. The charges against Michael Williams for being an accomplice are hereby dropped due to lack of sufficient evidence. However, Michael Williams, I urge you to reflect on the moral dimensions of your inaction, if not the legal ones. Mike looked defeated, a shell of the man he used to be. It was a cold comfort, but comfort nonetheless. After the courtroom emptied, Mike approached me hesitantly. Sophia, can we talk? I looked at him, a man now stripped of his bravado, his mask of indifference finally cracked. What is there to talk about? About us, about our child. You're still carrying our child. That's true. I am carrying our child, but you are not part of that equation anymore. He sighed, his shoulders slumping. I failed you, Sophia, and I'll regret that for the rest of my life. Regret is a poor substitute for action. Mike, you had multiple chances to do the right thing, and you chose not to. Your regret doesn't change the past. His eyes met mine, and he opened his mouth as if to say something, then thought better of it and walked away. I watched him go, my heart a complex tapestry of relief, sorrow, and newfound strength. The divorce proceedings were quick, facilitated by the irrefutable evidence of Patricia's theft and Mike's morale. If not legal, Complicity. The court awarded me full custody of our unborn child and ordered Mike to pay alimony. As for the house, there was never any question. It was mine to begin with. Mike was evicted, left to pick up the broken pieces of a life he had a direct hand in shattering. In the end, vengeance was neither sweet nor satisfying. It was simply necessary. The law had done its part, but the reckoning was mine alone. I returned to my empty home, yet it was no longer a place tainted by betrayal. It was a sanctuary, a place where I could rebuild my life anew, fortified by the bitter lessons of the past. As I sat alone in the quiet, my hands cradling my pregnant belly, I realized that true strength doesn't come from what you can inflict upon the world, but from what you can endure. My child would grow up in a home filled with love, integrity, and respect, virtues that Mike and Patricia had shown me were non-negotiable in a world so willing to compromise them. Vengeance had been served, as cold and as final as the gavel's bang. Yet it was not an ending, but a new beginning. A chance to rebuild, to renew, and to rise stronger from the ashes of a past that had burnt me, but had not consumed me.